G'day golfers. Ever found yourself redirecting blame and making excuses after having an absolute shocker on a golf course? I know that I have. Range was closed, I was a little cold, didn't warm up, I hit it in those 3 old divots. Then we have the podcast for you. We focus on how to fundamentally own your swing. Strike it pure and consistently shoot in the 70s. Be it if you're a weekend hack, retired and playing daily, a school phenom or a tour professional. We present and discuss facts and physics pertaining to golf, trying to keep our ego and opinion at bay. We dispel myths such as keep your head down, bend your knees, or my all-time favourite, game improvement irons. So stop drinking that mythical Kool-Aid and have a sip of ours. I think you'll find it both inspiring and refreshing. I'm Scott Young, founder of Swing, PGA professional and ex-tour player. Welcome to Pivot the Path. G'day golfers and welcome to Pivot the Path, a podcast that my wife and I created to allow us to present some information that's very factual. We're high and tight on the facts of how you own your journey, own your swing so that you constantly improve. And it's leveraged upon our indoor platform that we're vertically integrating to online, to golf clubs, to movement, to physical therapy. And everything ties back to giving you factual-based information for you to own your swing. So the improvement pivot point this week is how to make precise decisions when you're practicing. And aspects that keep popping up from emails from our podcast, and thank you so much to everyone who interacts with us. Hey, I'd love to hear about this, or I'd love to hear about that. And we draw upon the fact that the Ryder Cup's coming up, or the fact that my members said A, B, and C, or Nick Siriannis, the coach of Philadelphia Eagles, was online or on camera saying X, Y, and Z, which we'll get to in a minute. So the podcast is high and tight on how you own your swing. So let's move into this. News from the fairways. My beautiful F1 weren't racing this week. We had a lot of golf, which is cool as we kind of peer down the PGA Tour. The fall PGA Tour ramps up, which some events have decent prize purse and FedEx points, some don't. This week we did. A little bit about that in a second. And we had Mr. Noren, Alex Noren, 43, Swede. He wins a DP Tour on the BMW. He wins from Adrian Sadia, the French guy. Now, Adrian had a great story. He's led into the final round of several DP Tour events and has yet to get it done on DP Tour. And listening to Radar Wayne Riley, who's a guy who I kind of looked up to on tour. He's a bit older than me. Radar's about probably 60, nudging 60. So he was like 10 years older than me, and the boy could flat out play. Wayne Riley, great player. And he's the commentator on the fairways. And he was actually saying, watching this young Adrian Frenchman play, how much he's matured just in the last couple of weeks. And he went toe for toe with Alec and unfortunately didn't get it done. Noren got up and down to make birdie on the second playoff hole and unfortunately went on to win. And so he won the BMW before and has won a couple of times out on DP2 this year. And it brings Noren to top 20. And in theory, he's top 20 global golfer. And in theory, he could have got a start in the Ryder Cup. And Radar asked him that, but he said, look, I'm a captain's assistant pick and I'm just going to play an assistant captain role. So I think Alex should play. So the Kroger event in Ohio was won by Charlie Hull. First time winner this year, third LPGA Tour event. And Charlie, if you may recall, has had an interesting little journey. He had to cut an event short a couple of weeks ago. She's been up and down. She's a hell of a chick. She hits it a mile. She works damn hard on her physique and smokes like a chimney. So, Charlie, you seem to get a lot going on there, but fantastic that you win because I think she's great for golf because she tells a different story and she's got a personality. Corn Ferry, we had Zach Baccarat won his first win, the $1.5 million event. So the Simmons Bank Open. So thank you, Simmons Bank. So that's a fantastic story. And don't forget that Corn Ferry is still amalgamating points for the top 20 Golden PGA Tour in 2026. So those Corn Ferry events still apply points up until October. So it's dog eat dog out there right now. And then we got to the PGA Tour, and Scotty Scheffler won the Procore PGA Tour event. Now, it's still a FedEx points. I think they play for 500 FedEx points here, and it's $6 million. So it's not a small event. I kind of taper off after the FedEx playoffs. But obviously, most of the guys are playing, keeping their hand on the rudder as Ryder Cup approaches. We're only 2 weeks out. So New York kind of winds down from the US Open tennis and then ramps back up to the Ryder Cup. So that's pretty cool. So a little bit of a segue to NFL. Why do we love the NFL so much? Obviously, it's round 2. This particular instance in the NFL, I just thought was absolutely unbelievable. So here we are, New York Giants. They've had a shit couple of years. The coaching staff's back and forth. The ownership is questionable. They let Saquon Barkley go, who's now won the, potentially move the needle for the Eagles. They won the Super Bowl last year. Anyway, here's Russell Wilson, bit of a journeyman. He's bounced around a little bit, and he's found himself in the Giants, and they're kind of neck and neck. He needs to make this amazing playoff, and then he's thrown this ball to Malik Neighbors, who's 22, and I was watching this in here yesterday. It was unbelievable. So they're basically down. They need to score. It's a minute left. It's just the Cinderella story. And then Russell throws this Hail Mary from the 50-yard line. This is why I watch NFL. The athleticism for these guys is unbelievable. So just think about this. Picture a ball being thrown blindly to you. You've got no idea where it's coming from. You've practiced it during the week, the route, whatever. You're going to do, 10 paces left. You're going to cut in 10, and then you're going to bolt 50 or 40 as the case may be. And then in the last half a second, you're looking over your left shoulder for a right-handed catcher, and you're going to find the ball. You're going to catch it in midair with double coverage. That means he's got 2 guys on you, and Malik catches this thing. He remembers to put his feet on the ground, scores a touchdown to tie it up. And it was the most amazing bit of athleticism that is death-defying. And so why do we watch NFL? Why do I watch it? I don't love how they go on about all the dog and pony after they do their job. If you want to watch some real athleticism, watch the AFL or watch a Rugby Union International. When the boys score a try, that's their job. Quick high-fiving back onto it. I can't stand all the dog and pony show, but their athleticism in the NFL is absolutely undeniable. And then Nick Siriannis in the Eagles pitching games here. And then the Eagles took down our favorite team. Rosie went to college in Missouri, and we had a farm, and Rosie was brought up on a farm in Missouri, and our girls enjoy the Taylor Swizzle concept. So our poor old Kansas City Chiefs got done by the Eagles. And in the locker room afterwards, Nick Sirianni was then quoted saying, "All right, boys, take it down. Let's enjoy this win. But what is it about our team? Our team is about, let's enjoy the victory, no doubt, but then we get back to process, process, process." And I wanted to tie that back. I hope you golfers out there aren't getting sick of me saying process, process, process. But what you'll find across every sport platform, every coach, every influencer who's there half their weight in structure and sincerity is about process. So here's Nick saying to his team, "Hey guys, bit of an ugly game tonight, but let's get back to this week creating better process." Brendan Aubrey scores a field goal from 64 yards. The guy played no football growing up. He was a soccer player, professional soccer league here in the US, sitting on his couch. NFL guys 2 years ago starts missing field goals, and his wife says to him, "You could do that." So he goes down, true story, Google this guy, Brendan Aubrey. He's the field goal kicker for Dallas Cowboys. And his wife says, "Mate, you could do that." So he goes to his local park, kicks the 60-yarder, invites a kicking coach for a couple of months, and now he's the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, and he just tied it up for them to then have extra time and then ultimately win the game. So what is what is our mantra here? Process, process, process. Keep it high and tight on the facts how you can own your golf swing. Why am I so pedantic on process? Because process brings results. And that's how we wanted to tie it back to our improvement pivot point. Well, how do you do that if you don't have the luxury of having a beautiful indoor facility like Swing? And so what we try to do in our podcast is obviously have some momentum. And I wanted to parlay last week's about conversation about indoor sims and just have a very factual conversation about be careful with the indoor simulator or the range launch monitor that you use and how powerful it can be if it's a fantastic bit of tech, but how detrimental it can be if it's not. So let's get into it. Our improvement pivot point is about how to be precise with the technology you have on hand. And so we're going to get into it. We're going to mention a couple of different launch monitors, and they can basically be broken down into two parts. And rather than labeling right or wrong, what we wanted to do was just explain what we use and why we use it. There's two basic launch monitors. You've got ceiling mounted, and then you've got floor. And if the floor mounted launch monitor, just know that the time that the data is being captured is far, far less than a ceiling mounted. So any floor mounted launch monitor is simply not going to be precise, period. Now, one of the brands, TrackMan out there, has done some amazing marketing on PGA Tour. And unfortunately for us, because TrackMan have done such a great bit of marketing, they actually don't know what's occurring with gear effect and face orientation. They use a 3D image and to use algorithms to guess gear effect and face strike, which is actually not precise even in a little bit. So unfortunately, when strangers and non-members come into Swing and they hit some shots and they've been using floor-based simulators or launch monitors, it's not precise. And our system here is really precise. And so there's a crossover of, well, hang on a tick, your system's saying I'm doing something that I know I'm not because I've been using A, B, and C for the last couple of years. And so we've had that conversation nearly every week because we get hundreds of people in here a week. And we just are kind of checking it out. Oh, what do you guys do? You do things a little differently. And so I wanted to be factual about that and say, hey, whatever system you've got, just be careful and know what you're using. And know that if it's a floor-mounted system, the time that the instrument's taking to take either cameras, if it's camera-based, so if it's a GC quad or if it's a launch monitor on the ground like Uneekor that we've got, the Uneekor Mini, or whether it's a TrackMan or whether it's, I've got a couple of others here. So we've basically got camera, the market leaders for camera, the Uneekor Mini, the Foresight GC Quad GC3, and then the Bushnell. Most of those aren't capturing face orientation. The only one that is the Foresight GC3, but you must have the 4 dots on the face. If you're not, none of those 4 mentioned are actually capturing face data. And if you're not capturing face data using a camera, the math that's coming out of your system is flawed. There's no ifs and buts and candy and nuts. Every day would be Christmas. The facts of keeping it high and tight for you to improve. Remember, Swing is an improvement platform. We are here not to sugarcoat it. We are here to get you to own your swing, to approach your handicap down to scratch. How do you do that? My opinion, I try to leave my opinion out of most of what we do here at Swing and on the podcast. My opinion is if you don't have face and path measured, camera measured data, you're wasting your time in terms of improvement because you're guessing. So of the TrackMan's flight scopes and full swings, they are not measuring gear effect and they are not measuring face data. And so if you're not doing that, you're guessing on a huge component. So I thought we'd go and compare our ceiling mounted Uneekor, which is the QED, which is phenomenal, to our floor portable, which is phenomenal. It's about $4,000. So the GC3, I think, runs you about 12. The floor mounted Mini runs you about 4.5. And so what we're trying to do is, last week we talked about accessibility and how do we get accessibility? Well, if you can't justify $4,000 for the Uneekor Mini and you sure as shit can't justify the 12 for the Foresight, there's some other cheaper alternatives, but know that the data is going to compromise your ability to improve. So you've got to just think outside the box a little bit. And so what I thought I'd do is kind of talk about that and show you. So let's get into it. I have 8 simulators in here and they are absolutely precise. We've got construction going on in our building and we've noticed when there's jackhammering on the floor above us, I've actually got to recalibrate these systems because if the systems do move, I bolted them personally to the deck. So I was up remember, I'd be up a ladder about 20 feet, bolting them to the concrete deck. And Rosie was very annoyed. I don't love heights. So I'm up on this ladder, bolting these damn things to the ceiling. And what we've noticed is that if we have jackhammering above, our system's launch monitors move. So I've got to constantly calibrate these. And how we calibrate them is making sure the infrared and the cameras are square to where we're trying to hit. So just to give you an idea, we've got Uneekor QEDs and we've got Uneekor Eyes. Now the Uneekor Eye, we have 1 unit and that is in front of the ball with data capture to the golf ball against the direction of play. These are QEDs that sit behind the ball 4 feet. So the only data that the QED does not capture is angle of attack because the golf club's moving away from the camera in the direction of play. So the QED runs you at about $6 or $7,000 for the actual launch monitor. Then you got to do software. The Eye runs you about $8,000. The Uneekor models, if you can bolt them to a ceiling, are phenomenal. They're absolutely precise. And then we've got this little guy. So we've got the Eye Mini, which runs about $4,500. We'll give you the link. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between floor mounted, whether it's on the side here with cameras, GC3, Foresight, GC Quad, TrackMan, versus ceiling. What you're going to be able to tell is that any floor mounted, whether it's behind the play or to the side, the cameras, as good as they are, simply don't capture the club face for a long period of time. Whereas when the golf launch monitor's on the ceiling, it's taking a longer period of time to capture the data. So Uneekor's basically only capturing a couple of feet either side of the golf ball. It doesn't know what's happening above me, and it uses algorithms to guess that. It is capturing it on a camera, but it's not using it to control ball flight and club face data. And with this one, the Uneekor Mini, so I've got 2 systems running at the same time with the one shot. And I noticed that when I play a really slow chip, so I'm going to hit and compare data from the side-borne Mini, $4,000, and you can play the entire game that I can do on my system here. So you can play short game complex, and the short game complex in Uneekor is magnificent. You can play holes. You can have a third-party software and play Bethpage. I play Avondale, my home track back home. So basically with this little system, you can play whatever you like. It just depends whether you've got a graphics card or whether you use your iPad. So to back it up a little, if you want to grab a little Mini here and you had an iPad, you can play great games just on a range. But if you've got a bigger CPU, if you've got like 16 gig of RAM, I built on my hard drives, and you've got a desktop, then you can actually, you've got a commercial golf simulator. So the system here, the floor mounted one, if you ramp it up to a decent desktop, you can have all the bells and whistles. If that's too much, you can just use your iPad and have the range and play some basic software. I have asked Uneekor to ramp up the iPad's ability to run games and play Avondale and play Bethpage, but they're not quite there yet. So let's talk about the difference between floor mounted and ceiling mounted. I've got the ball and it's basically been accepted by our floor mounted and it's been accepted by our ceiling mounted. Now, I've obviously been teaching indoors for like 19 years, so I know these systems probably better than most. So I'm going to come from the inside here about 3 degrees with a pretty standard little chip. So I've come from the inside 1.5 degrees on my ceiling mounted, and it says my face was 1.1. Perfect little chip and run. I've come from the inside 1.5. My face was 1.1. Face less than path is the goal of golf. And this one says that the side angle, so the floor mounted doesn't measure club face orientation. It measures where the ball traverses, which is a fundamental flaw if you want to be precise. But that said, you can use where the ball tracks and kind of work backwards. So my floor mounted said the ball started 0.5 degree to the right. My face orientation said it started 1 degree to the right. So that's pretty comparable. But where the floor mounted kind of lacks, and this will be the same as TrackMan, GC Quad will be the same, is that because the club is traveling so quickly, the unit simply can't capture data precisely. Got to put the ball in the right spot. So I'm now good to go. And I'm going to slow this down. I'm going to come from the inside about 1 degree the same. There I've come from the inside 0. My face was 0.7. This one says my ceiling mounted said the face was 0.7. My floor says the face was 0.9. Very comparable. This one says I still came from the inside 3 degrees. And the ceiling said I came from the inside 0. And so where this is really important, yesterday we had one of our new members and he's come from a floor mounted that sits behind the ball. Now this is where it's really powerful to own your swing. I'd say most of the males who come in contact with me, as they take the club away, their watch face, their logo of their glove points up, the face is open. And if I have an open face and I come outside in, I'll do it now. So I'm going to manipulate the path. I'm going to come outside in, but the face is going to be miles open. Well, let's create an example why. And again, our platform is about getting rid of all the bullshit. TrackMan doesn't know gear effect. It doesn't know where the face is being struck via the golf ball. It uses algorithms and a 3D model to guess. And that's probably the market leader. Why? Because they advertise on PGA Tour. But if you want to own your swing, here's where that fundamental flaw is. And if I speak transparently, I'm the bad guy that basically says, hey, you know, what you're practicing isn't correct. If you want to own your swing, get down to scratch, it's not going to be achievable. Here's why. If I open the blade and then I spin my torso and come outside in, but as I hit the ball, I open the blade, unless you've got camera-based knowledge, you won't know that. You've got to really understand the physics of the golf game, and you've got to look at where the ball hits the screen to make sure that you're actually practicing precisely. So what I'm going to do is open this blade. I'm going to spin my torso outside in, but because I'm using gear effect, so remember what's gear effect, really important. If I'm coming outside in and I have a floor-based launch monitor, I can hit the ball off the toe, I can open the face. Because the club face for a right-handed golfer is rotating clockwise, the ball will spin counterclockwise. The most common flaw I see as a golf instructor is that an individual is coming outside in using their torso, opening the face and hitting butter draws with a fundamental flaw because the TrackMan or the floor-mounted system doesn't understand that. Okay, so let's get back to this. We've just explained what gear effect is. Let's give an example. And we're not saying you can't improve, guys. What you're just going to have to do, you're just going to have to basically put a bit of tape on your screen. You're just going to have to use a bit of face data so you can put a bit of tape on your face. And you've just got to work out whether you're hitting the toe, the center, or the heel. Gear effect is absolutely instrumental. And so what we know is that when you're coming outside in using your torso and opening the face, it happens so quickly that it's hard to measure that and it's hard to understand that in the moment. So we're going to come outside in, we're going to open the face up. We're going to hit it pretty quickly. Okay, the ball started way right. My ceiling mounted system said I've come outside 1.6 and my face was double the path. And the face was open and the ball started right. Now, if I look at my floor-mounted simulator, it said that my face was less than path. And my ceiling-mounted said my face was open to path. So now we've got a different bit of tech explaining that my poor swing there, not efficient, was outside in 1.6 and my face was greater than path. So as I'm moving the club to the camera, instead of working from the inside out, hips leading hands, I worked from the outside in, but I opened the face and the ball started right. But because the numbers on the ceiling-based camera, face was greater than path, I'm going to take a step back and go, oh, I don't want face greater than path. Why? But on the floor mounted, it said my face was less than path. So just be careful with the data you're using. There's nothing that compares to ceiling mounted data simply because camera-based, simply because the cameras have more time to collect data on the club face. The floor mounteds are better than nothing, but just know that you're going to have to guess some of the output. Remember, output plus some data, you'll improve. You just got to work a little harder to do it. Any questions on simulators, let us know. Anything's better than nothing, but remember, face less than path. Unless the simulator is capturing face data, it's guessing, right? It's guessing. Beauty golfers, look, thanks for listening. And remember, you can absolutely own your swing with the work you put into the game off the golf course. Drop our newsletter to your mates, comes out every week. Please send the podcast around, and thank you so much for your support. We are here to help you own your swing and get you to shoot blue skies and 65s. Ryder Cup in 2 weeks. Let's go. Cheers.